It's Disability Pride Month this month. Yay! What is Disability Pride Month though? What do we celebrate? And how can we celebrate it? Let's find out. Hi, welcome to Minerva. I'm Vera, and on my channel we talk about everything disability related. If that's something you would like to know more about, then make sure to like and subscribe, as it really does help a new channel out. Today I am wearing a grey top and I'm sat in front of a white wall. In the top right corner of the wall, there's a picture of a wombat. According to the WHO, about 16% of people experience significant disability, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that that is about 1 in 6 people. Yet, disability is still something that is stigmatized in society, and ableism is still very common, as we found out in my video from last week, which I'll link up somewhere on the screen. To combat this, there are many amazing disability rights activists that are advocating for our cause, but something that is a bit more frivolous but also important is Disability Pride Month. According to Wikipedia, Disability Pride Month has, since 1999, has celebrated people with disabilities, their culture and identities, and their contributions to society. It also seeks to change the way people think about and define disability, to end the stigma of disability, and to promote the idea that disability is a natural part of human diversity in which people with disabilities can celebrate and take pride in. It is the ultimate poster child for the social model of disability. There are a lot of conflicting feelings about Disability Pride Month that I have seen online amongst disabled people. Spoiler alert, in my opinion, Disability Pride Month is a good thing, but I'll get into my reasons why later. Although Disability Pride Month is not yet acknowledged by any governments, it is celebrated by a large part of the disability community. Disability Pride Month is celebrated in July, as the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, was signed in July 1999. Bear in mind, that's only 33 years ago. The ADA is a piece of law that made it illegal for people to discriminate based on disability status. It, for example, made it a legal requirement for employers to make reasonable accommodations for their employees with disabilities. Whilst it wasn't the first piece of legislation, it was by far the most far-reaching. I'd like to read this quote from George H.W. Bush, not the guy who invaded Iraq, to show you exactly how far-reaching this was. Was referenced in the Berlin Wall. He says, "And now I sign legislation which takes a sledgehammer to another wall, one which has for far too many generations separated Americans with disabilities from the freedom they could glimpse but not grasp. Once again, we rejoice as this barrier falls, proclaiming together we will not accept, we will not excuse, we will not tolerate discrimination in America." Of course, this was only in America, and this bill does not at all mean that systemic ableism was eradicated at all, but it is a start. People with disabilities have been advocating for disability rights since at least the beginning of the 19th century, but even much longer. As long as ableism has existed, people have fought it. Unfortunately, we cannot get into the lives and activism of other disability rights activism in this video, but I would like to make a recurring video series highlighting these disability rights activists from the past and the present from all over the world. Although Disability Pride Month is not yet acknowledged by any governments, we do have a Disability Pride flag. Actually, we have two. We have this flag that is just for disability in general. It has 3 horizontal stripes, one in gold, one in silver and one in bronze. And this is just about disabilities in general. But we also have this flag, which is specifically for Disability Pride Month. And it's a very interesting flag. It has a black background with 5 diagonal stripes in red, gold, white, green and blue. The black background commemorates and mourns the lives of disabled people who have died because of ableism, violence, negligence, suicide, rebellion, illness and eugenics. It also represents rage and protest against the mistreatment of disabled people. And it's a nod to the pirate flag, generally considered to be a symbol of rebellion. The red in the bottom represents physical disabilities. The gold stripe, second from bottom, represents neurodiversity. The white one in the middle is for invisible disabilities and disabilities that have not yet been diagnosed. The blue stripe, the second from the top, stands for emotional and psychiatric disabilities, including mental illness, anxiety and depression. And lastly, the green one on the top represents sensory disabilities, including deafness, blindness, auditory processing disorders, and all other kinds of sensory disabilities. As said by the Colombia Weinberg Family Cerebral Palsy Center, it has stripes to represent the solidarity between communities. The diagonal band of straight stripes represents cutting across the barriers that disabled people face, and it also represents the light cutting through the darkness. The stripes are going from the bottom right to the left top, are meant to contrast the vertical walls and horizontal ceilings that keep disabled people isolated, as said by Mendes in 2023. I have seen online that there are some controversies surrounding the topic of Disability Pride Month. Some people are annoyed because they are lumped together into this community where the only thing that we have in common is having a disability, which I understand. Other people are annoyed with Disability Pride because they think that being disabled is nothing to celebrate. They feel that their lives are much more difficult because of their disability than it would be otherwise, which can be true, of course, and I understand, and it's valid. I don't think that Disability Pride Month necessarily celebrates disabilities, but it does celebrate the lives of disabled people, because they are very much worth living and often stigmatized. Then there seems to be annoyance with the Disability Pride Month because of the word pride. Some people find it hard to believe that they should feel pride because they have a disability. I think some of this might be rooted in internalized ableism. Being disabled is morally neutral at worst, of course. We do still live in a society that thinks that the lives of disabled people are less than non-disabled lives. But I also understand the aversion against the word pride. It's not an achievement to be disabled in and of itself. It's not something that we've had to work hard for to achieve. In contrary, it's often something that just happened to us. On the other hand, why shouldn't we be proud of our disability? Only being allowed to be proud of your achievements is also problematic in and of itself. Why shouldn't we be proud of us? We can and should be proud of who we are. In that same vein, we could and maybe even should be proud of being disabled. Being disabled is just as much a part of our identity as being kind or being funny is. I do think disabled people should take pride in their disabilities. If not us, who will? If we show that disability is something to be proud of, society might just follow. If we, disabled people, treat disability as something that needs to be hidden, something that we cannot be proud of or happy with, and something that needs to be kept hush-hush, then how can we ask society to treat disability as if it isn't something to be ashamed of? Disability Pride Month put disability at the forefront of the thoughts of those of us who are not disabled, even for just a little bit. And it makes it seem like an everyday occurrence, because it is. Additionally, Disability Pride Month, to me, is an antidote to living in a society that says that we should be ashamed of being disabled. This is the first year that I'm actively working through my own internalized ableism and shame surrounding being disabled. When I was growing up, the message I received was very much, don't talk about disability, don't let anyone know that you're disabled, don't tell anyone. The word disabled itself wasn't even ever used. I was made to think that disability is something to be ashamed of, and I think that is the case for a lot of us. And I think that Disability Pride Month is a good way to give that shame back to where it belongs. Non-disabled people and society who treat disabled people as less than. Disability Pride Month is about shedding the stigma that disabilities often have. It's amazing seeing people openly disabled and openly enjoying themselves. It kind of gives other people the permission to do that too. There are many other reasons to celebrate Disability Pride Month. It is about showing that we are not ashamed to be us with our disabilities. It shows that we exist and should be accommodated. Disability Pride Month can be seen as a political reaction against shame and stigma. Similarly to what I said in the Ableism video, never talking about disability makes it seem like it's a dirty concept that should be hidden. Disability Pride Month then is the opposite of that sentiment and says that we can celebrate being disabled. And why shouldn't we? Celebrating Disability Pride Month is also a good way to show other people that it's okay to be disabled. And this can help people with accepting their own condition. It's to celebrate that we exist even though society doesn't make it easy to do so. And lastly, it's to remember and celebrate the work of disabled activists that makes it possible for us to live the way we do today. Disability Pride Month is not yet acknowledged by any governments worldwide, so there are not yet many official celebrations. There are some in cities in America. If you cannot access those, however, for whatever reason, I certainly can't, then there are other reasons that we can celebrate Disability Pride Month. For me personally, this month I'm going to listen to, watch and read about disabled people, and especially the channels that show the joy in being disabled. And I'm going to start by watching Crip Camp, A Disability Revolution, and then Barbara Met Allan again. These movies, the first one's a documentary and the second one is a biopic, are about the work and lives of many disability rights activists. I would also quite like to watch Life's Worth Living, although I can't really find it anywhere, which is also about a group of disability rights activists. Lastly, I would like to listen to Disability Visibility, which is a podcast which is also about activism and disability. Let me know if you know about any other movies or series or podcasts that celebrate the lives and work of disabled activists. I'm always looking for more things to watch or listen to. In the future, I would like Disability Pride Month to be just as big as Pride Month justly is. I would like to see companies showcase their support of disabled people, not just symbolically, it must be systemically as well, but I would like to see companies celebrate disability as well. I would like ignoring Disability Pride Month to become just as risky as ignoring Pride Month is. In summary, Disability Pride Month is a good way to celebrate how far we have come in such a short amount of time. Bear in mind, not that long ago, disabled people were just taken out of their communities and shoved into residential homes to be forgotten about. And it's a good way to remember the work that's been done by many disability rights activists. If you've ever used a ramp to get into a federal building, or if you've ever used a dropped curb, you've got them to thank for it. And ultimately, it's a good way to celebrate their progress and the lives of disabled people, because we, just like everyone else, deserve that. That was it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you've been able to celebrate Pride Month how you want to and if you want to. And I'll see you again next week. Bye!